Boom. Good evening. Welcome to another Wednesday premiere, and I hope this one finds you all well. And as it's a Wednesday, we always have the special treat of being joined by Ilana Mercer. He's going to come on in a minute or so. So just ahead of that, there's the usual housekeeping I have to remind you of. So wherever you're watching this, be it on legacy deep tech media like YouTube, Facebook, whether it's new old tech like Odyssey, brand new Tube, wherever it is, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the buttons, give us the thumbs up, all that kind of stuff. But do make sure, by the way, that you are subscribed to those alt channels. All the social links are down below. So to BitChute, to Odyssey, to brand new Tube, you need to follow me on all those platforms. It's really important. If you do that, if you like what you're hearing, and I'm sure you will, why would there be any reason not to? Do make sure you give us the thumbs up and help work with the algorithm, I think it is all about. So give us the thumbs up. You do that pretty well, but do make sure you do it. And finally, but not least, if you do enjoy the work we do here, then please go to altnewsmedia.net/donate and drop whatever you can into the hat over there so we can keep the show on the road. As I say, Ilana's coming on. I always like to show Ilana's books because obviously she's the author of some very really good reads into the Cannibals Pot, the Trump Revolution, and Broadsides, which is one I'm waiting to have delivered to me, actually, Ilana, believe it or not. It's coming all the way from the USA. Ilana can be found on our website, ilanamercer.com, and also Burley at bob.com. So you can find all of her work there, and as always, it's essential reading. So without further ado, can I bring on Ilana Mercer to the stream?
Hi, David.
Hi, Ilana. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Wonderful to be with you. I look forward to it.
It's really good to have you on the stream. And I have to say, Ilana, you know, as we've been doing more of these things, it's really encouraging for me to see some of my British followers getting into the kind of conversations that we're able to have, which is that's why, you know, I actually quite love this. You see this thing behind me, this flag, the Union flag and the US flag. I've always loved the kind of intermingling between these different but yet closely related cultures. So yeah, so it's brilliant to have you in the stream, I have to say. I'm really happy. So Ilana, we're gonna tackle something tonight that requires clear thinking. So no one better than you to do that, actually. And what we want to do tonight, and this is kind of an elaboration on something we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, I guess, and some other streams. But this is very, very specific, everyone. So I hope you enjoy this, because we need to understand if you like, there's critical race theory and there's Marxism. And we need to understand the delineation between these things. Are they connected? Or are they not connected? All this kind of stuff. And just before I came on the stream, I mean, I was saying to Ilana, a short interview with Seb Gorka, and North Carolina deputy governor, I think. And they were talking about critical race theory and Marxism, and it was all kind of intermingled. And actually, Ilana, just to kick off with, just as an example of the intermingling between these two topics, Jed, if we can just bring up this article over on Town Hall, which is a good publication, but again, critical race theory warmed over Marxism. So it's mixed up, and I hear it all the time, Ilana, you know, and sometimes I've been guilty of the same thing, actually. It's kind of easy to conflate things that actually perhaps are not conflated. So if we take that off the screen, Jed, and we bring Ilana full back on the screen. Right, Ilana, over to you, because you did write a really good column, which I guess is the essence of what we're going to chat about. If we bring that one up, Jed, actually, just again, setting the scene here, Ilana, setting the scene. A white out of whites, ignoring the albino, demi-elephant in the room. And as I said, no one does titles as good as Ilana, by the way. These titles are, in themselves, are a work of art. I love your titles. But going down into the article itself, I mean, you know, I want to really cut to the core of it, which I want you to then expand on, if you will. And that is that, I guess, yes, in particular, unlike critical race theory, Marxism offers a class-based analysis. It fingers social class as a primary source of conflict in society. So that's what you've written, Ilana. So explain, take it from there. Where does this go? What does it mean?
Now, I just have to give kudos to townhall.com. While they do, the majority of the columnists just have this theoretical escapism, because basically the albino elephant in the room is for them to be able to disgorge the words anti-white. Critical race theory primarily is anti-white. Actually, that is the focus and the exclusive project program of critical race theory. And of course, structurally, they're very different. If you want to analyze things intellectually, I guess you can find commonalities. You might trace history. The one came from the other. However, structurally, the one is a materialistic theory of political economy, Marxism. It is rational. You might not like it, but it's rational. And it is not based on the a priori utter crap that is critical race theory, which is circularity, circular argument, or simply, how to put it, if white, then bad. That is the logical structure. If B, then A, which is what we regard as a logical error. So that is critical race theory. And townhall.com, the young editors there, I get published there routinely, but I noticed that even and I got this column was in there, and that is wonderfully radical. And I want to commend these new young editors who I used to be persona non grata, since coming out against their war in Iraq. And Town Hall is mainstream Republican, but Town Hall is also absolutely attuned to the base, and the base, 80 million of us, is no longer GOP establishment Republican. But in any case, my column appeared there too, and the readers are smart and they recognize those differences you point to, and basically, and we've been over this on this show, that to fight this, and this is do or die, and I'm talking as a South African who's written, I think, the quintessential text about South Africa. This is do or die. If you deny reality, you're in a lot of doo-doo, put it this way. So you can escape into what I call theoretical escapism. You and I dealt with it in another one of my columns. You can do the little Marxist dance, but if you're denying reality, and reality is the touchstone of truth, I keep repeating that, if you fail to see that critical race theory is not exactly Marxism, and its actors, in fact, are people who are, active, they are producers and consumers in a market economy, yet they manage to parlay their exclusive hate and revulsion of whites into a program while they act capitalistically. So my logical retort to them would be this, and even to our listeners, well, if these people who are active in a market economy as consumers and producers, if they adopted theoretical capitalism, would their stance towards whites change? I don't think so, right? So the focus is a distraction if you want to fight, and you have to fight. This is do or die. And so generally, to try and give an anchor to people who are so, like Gorka and Dinesh D'Souza and every other, all the holy men and women on Fox News, they always begin the discussion of a horrific thing that happened to a white child or a white teacher because they're white with, yes, this is Marxism. It is, and they lull a lot of, the majority of readers on Town Hall too, they lull into this feel good, because I think conservatives essentially don't like to talk about things not nice.
Exactly.
And saying, I have no problem. And I think maybe that's the Israeli in me. Israelis have no issue saying Arabs are against us, we're Jews and we're going to live, But it seems like the Christian civilization is very much turn the other cheek, and we are almost embarrassed to say the word anti-white. We are embarrassed about our weakness.
Ilana, one of the things that we have in common is that, in terms of your South African heritage and you're really linked as well, and me. I mean, I live in Northern Ireland, right? And Northern Ireland.
You're scrappy. You're scrappy.
We kind of say it like it is, Ilana, and that is just one of the things that I think that's what one of the things that connects us. But your point is valid. If you can't say it, you can't deal with it then. And you become a captive to it. And that's the problem with conservatism and Republican around the world, where we're oftentimes we want to be loved. But you see, I don't want to be loved. I want to speak the truth. Apart from my nearest and dearest.
I do want to be loved, but I'm congenitally or constitutionally incapable of lying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So therefore, when it comes to critical race theory, you have to say it you have to call it for what it is. And in your column and in your columns in this, Ilana, you consistently do. I mean, it's courageous. It's stating the obvious as well, really, isn't it? It's not, I mean, it's what everyone, and if everyone else followed your example, this issue could be properly dealt with, instead of being, as you've said, the albino elephant in the room.
Yes, and I actually watch I almost watch these people on Fox News, and it's like they should be they're squirming. They're almost squirming, avoiding the truth. And for instance, now they have a news star, and he's a dashing gentleman, fired from the military, and he comes on Fox News, and he's very, very bright, obviously, without mentioning the G factor. Obviously, very smart man and a pilot. Can we afford to lose pilots? I don't think so. Being fired because of Marxism. And I think to myself, Marxism, why would he? And he's written a book about Marxism in the military. And you and I have done a show on the military. Marxism, what are they doing? Are they nationalizing the tanks? What exactly is happening that is Marxist in the military? Obviously, the gentleman read the Riot Act. He was told that because he might be, as come from dirt poor folks from the Appalachians, Irish extract, poor people who built this country, but because of his whiteness, he has privilege. Because of his brilliance, he has privilege. Because of his looks, he has privilege. Because of all the things that are a factor of his being. As I put it in this column, according to critical race theory, whites are on the wrong side of creation. That's the simple fact of it. And because he's all those things, he's obviously been given, you have to deduce that he's obviously been given he's read the Riot Act and told, look, you have to look out for the other, you have to step down, you have to cede, quality is no longer that important. You have to teach this lady who's pregnant to fly, on and on. So he's gone and written a book about Marxism in the military rather than anti-male, anti-white in the military. Explain that to me. Because he's a gentleman, but you can go so far where men become cowards, right?
Yeah. That's the thing, and that's the point at which they diverge from the truth, really, isn't it? Because it is, I mean, it has to be the unadulterated truth and facts of the matter that we must discuss, not just the things that are nice, not just the things that are acceptable to others. But here's the thing, Ilana, how has critical race theory managed to get any anchor at all in a country like America, which is still, it's still a white country? So how is it anchored in, and why has it sort of gone off like wildfire? How has this happened?
First, I think you anchored me very well to the distinctions that we haven't yet made. And these are distinctions that are made. I went to some leading scholars in critical race and in Marxism. And Marxism focuses exclusively on a class-based analysis.
Yeah.
The source of all conflict in society is social class, according to Marxism.
Yeah.
And critical race, conversely, focuses exclusively on race. But this is an incomplete sentence, as the prime source of conflict in society, but not any race, on the white race, which they call white supremacy. So we have the distinction very clearly now. So, and this is according to a gentleman I quote there called Charles W. Mills. And he says they are absolute honest demons, these the smart set of the critical race theory. And they reject the general term racism in favor of white supremacy as a conceptual framework for understanding race-based oppression. There you have it. So conservatives, even when they do talk about this painful, unpleasant topic, they call it racism. This is racism. It's not racism, because strictly speaking, critical race theory is not even traditionally racist. And people pounced on me on that toxic forum, Twitter, when I said it's not traditionally racist because it's exclusively white. It's pro all races other than white. So I think those are the distinctions, and those are very important to delineate.
Yeah. So is it right to say that critical race theory in itself is racist?
I think that is the trope that the conservatives use, and that is better than calling it Marxist, but it's only a half-truth, and a half-truth, David, is still a wholesale lie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, no, and this is another gentleman says, Marxism is viewed as incompatible with critical race theory because critical race theory's leading smart set critical race theory view whites as the source of all ills in society, and Marxism just doesn't live up to that promise. So there again, to chicken out and say it's racism, and you hear that a lot on Fox News and on Tucker, racism, but that also leaves me confused because it's not traditionally racism. It has oozing and oodle loves for every other race but white. So I would call it anti-whiteism.
Which is, I think, a much more precise term. And I hope folks, as you're watching this, these are the insights that are so important to get. Because again, well, Ilana, that is what you've just said is exactly nail on the head, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. It's anti-white, which is pretty appalling. But as you say, these are honest demons.
And then you asked me why in America, but this comes from American. I would turn that back on you and say, why in England? I mean, this comes from the American Academy. This is from the subpar, sub-intelligent intelligentsia, the cognoscenti, the smartest people in our country come up with this crap, with this bullshit, and we export it as we export a lot of stuff that isn't so good, like democracy at the barrel of a gun, so on and so forth. So I ask, why in your universities? Why is that catching on?
Well, actually, this relates to what
it's a really bad export. It's a really faulty and crappy export.
Yeah, it's not the best one we've had, but actually, Ilana, it relates back to last week when people may remember when we talked about what happened to the BLM activist Sasha Johnson, and she was running around London with her beret on, talking about the British police being like the KKK, and the KKK ain't ever been in the UK. So it is this thing, but she'd been to university. So to answer your question to me, I think some of the most educated people are the most intellectually dishonest and stupid people as well. And therefore, these ideas like critical race theory, they appeal enormously to them. And also, maybe, is there a degree of self-loathing? Is there a degree of self-hatred? What do you think?
No. People like the Johnson women are full of such self-love. Just look at the selfies. Actually, even Twitter, to their credit, took down when she said the aim of Black Lives Matter. We went over that during our last chat, was to enslave whites, and that comes to the dimitude or the subservience part of my column. Which is not socialism, but to inculcate whites into subservience. And you see it always it's so silent, but it's, the program is everywhere across corporate America. And our household is steeped in tech. It's very much becoming you don't want to say things because you still live off that avails of deep tech, but it is very much the case that it's like a subservient class where white old men are doing the work they've always excelled at, especially in engineering and technology, and other people, like in South Africa, are taking credit for it. So it's very ugly, and that's the program, and we have to be able to speak about it honestly.
Yeah, because I think it is strange, though, Ilana, that you have got lots of corporations, big business that have large white workforces, and I mean, we have mentioned this, we've touched on this before. They're quite plainly inculcating critical race theory on these people as well. And I find that it's kind of amazing. We have it here in the UK as well, even though it's not the same. It shouldn't be the same, but they still run with it. And it's like everybody is okay apart from white people. Why is there such hatred of white people?
I think I deal with it in Into the Cannibals Pot. That's a tough one, and I'd have to think of hedging my words very carefully. I think
I understand.
That's a topic for an entire show.
Well, I keep saying to you,
think about the Hutus who took machetes to their Tutsi neighbors, and I think I'd speak about the massacre that was it a million people were macheted to death. The Kigali River, I can't remember the name there in Rwanda, ran with blood. The Hutu people had been dominated since the 1500s by the smart, efficient, and industrious Tutu, who are also Tutsi, sorry, who are also very beautiful, very beautiful. If you think of the model David Bowie's wife, Emma, that sort of look, and that's what they look like, and they also dominated the other folks, and it was as though they were erasing the beauty they couldn't aspire to, and that's what happened, certainly. And this analysis actually is given by a gentleman who I quote in Into the Cannibals Pot, who was a black American. He was bureau chief in Africa for Washington Post. You'll never see him on. And he wrote a book Out of Africa, I think. It's a classic, and I quote from it generously in that book. And he says it was sheer. This is his analysis of the Tutsi and Hutu massacre, and he says it was sheer jealousy, envy, rage, wanting to eradicate the beauty and the success they could never live up to. So it's very complicated, and I wouldn't want to gloss over a difficult topic that you threw at me, but I covered it quite thoroughly. And we can look at the similarities next time we speak, maybe a good hook for conversation, similarities between the settlers in America and those in South Africa. Very, very similar situation, and why they have to be dispossessed.
Well, do you know, Alana, one of the things that I definitely would like us to do is have maybe a special episode one night just focused on Into the Cannibals Pot and into the whole experience, all the stuff. I mean, folks, if you haven't read the book, I mean, you must absolutely read it, buy it and read it. But it's a really, it's kind of, it's a very expansive analysis. It's a really interesting analysis, and as you say, Alana, you can't sum it up.
I don't say that it's communism that's inspiring them to want
No, you
to
don't. That's right.
to want to re-educate, intimidate, and subjugate whites as whites. I don't say that because
No.
it's not true. That would be gross reductionism, and it's just not true.
Do you think Marxism is just a convenient bogeyman for conservatives?
Well, I think there are a lot of structural similarities, and I'm not denying that if you go, it's quite impressive, this theoretical escapism, escape into intellectual, how would you say, sort of like an ostrich, you escape into a theory. I mean, maybe it's even admirable, but it's certainly unlike conservatives and certainly Republicans who are more pragmatic than intellectual. But in this, they stick to critical race. And this gentleman I mentioned who's come on Fox, he's even mined the whole Marxism, Frankfurt school that came, I don't know, was it in but it's total escapism. If you look at critical race theory, if you're going to fight it, you're going to come short. You're going to come short if you resort to that sort of escapism. I'm not saying it's not an interesting intellectual exercise, but it's redundant and it's deceiving and it's wrong.
Yeah, because when I look at some of the stuff happening in American cities, even as we speak, the first day of June 2021, second day of June 2021, I don't think the issue is Marxism that's causing a lot of the problems, but I could be mistaken. But it doesn't seem to me that when I look at Chicago and some of these other places, it's not Karl Marx who's the problem. I think, Alana, be fair to say.
Well, Marxism certainly didn't focus exclusively on whites, and was not, the project was not anti-white, or white supremacy, as critical race theorists call it. The issue is white supremacy as a conceptual framework for understanding race-based oppression. That's from Charles W. Mills. Simple, that they say it. But how do people tell you what their intentions are intellectually and pragmatically? And you say, interesting, Marxism. I mean, and that's why I thought maybe Dimitude, because we're very passionate about, and we do understand that idiom very well, and we've discussed it about Islam. And I thought maybe using the Dimitude analogy would be useful for people to understand that this is what it is about. And Dimitude, often we think that Dimitude is about being a second-class citizen. And people are dead wrong about that. And I went to Jihad Watch, incredible resource for Islam. And Dimitude is the Islamic manifestation of extracting benefits and pleasures from someone whose life is forfeit. You're a wordsmith. What does it mean when your life is forfeit? It means your life is there for the taking. It doesn't, I said, well, put differently, white lives matter less. It's even worse. It's even worse than that. So I think that's what they are working towards, and deal with it. Denial is a deadly defense mechanism.
I just wish there was more people, more voices like yours, Ilana, on this one, because
Oh, David, as we've covered before, I think it was the painter Whistler said something very witty. They will paraphrase or steal my ideas or yours as their own because we're marginalized. I think it was the painter Whistler uttered something really witty, and Oscar Wilde, who, heavens, if he plagiarized from anyone, I would say thank you, because what a genius. But Oscar Wilde said, oh, I wish I had said that. And Whistler looked at him and said, you will, you
You
will.
will, Oscar.
So,
Yes, I
so,
remember.
so you're quick on your feet. They will say what we're saying here. They just won't mention us as the originators of the discussion.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, the Dimitude angle is a good one on it, actually, you know. But I think, sorry, Lan, just there's a wee bit of echo here. Yeah, I think it's just trying to make sure that people are absolutely clear between critical race theory and Marxism, and so that for clear thinking, everyone, I think, if they absorb what you've been saying in this, Ilana, that will help them analyze what they're being fed, what they're being told. Because the other thing in all this is like the legacy media, as I call it, you know, the legacy. I mean, it does no service whatsoever to many of its viewers and listeners, because it's also way too scared, maybe too unwilling to say what you said.
You know, the American media is worse than a farce. I don't know if your media is anything as bad as this. I mean, they deal with nothing but with Trump's presidency. This is what they're rehashing, and their whole project currently is to make sure their theme is the GOP has gone wrong because it's not like me, a silly female who's given a job because she's a female. You know, it's run by women, and by women with the chromosome Y as well, as I like to say. You know, these flaccid people, and all they talk about is how the GOP is strayed from its mandate, but they never mention the, maybe it's the albino elephant in the room, and that is 80 million people who stand behind a new GOP, a populist GOP, a GOP that cleaves to the kind of truth that we are echoing. The people want to hear. And when I write these columns, I might have been ahead of time when I was writing things like this 20 years ago and called all names in the book, but now the people are totally with us. I mean, and 80 million people who voted for Trump. So the media's project is absolutely ludicrous. You look at it, you look at CNN and MSNBC, and they're discussing not Biden's policies, and they're welcome to tell me why these are good. You know, they're not analyzing Biden's policies. They're not tracing issues that he might be dealing with from the former administration, the Trump administration. All they are talking about is the evil of our ideas. And it really is about blackening the MAGA folks.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Orange Man bad still dominates their every thought. The thing is,
David, Orange Man, never mind. It's about Trump. Yes, the GOP's on the wrong track. But they never concede that what they really are maligning and blackening are the people, 80 million strong, that stood behind this man and behind the new direction in the GOP, and absolutely hate everybody in Congress except for Marjorie Greene.
Yeah.
You know, that's 80 million strong people. This is what the legacy media, as you call them, is going against, and it's remarkable. Not only don't they cover the news, when I watch BBC International, you tell me BBC Local is just as bad as CNN, but when I watch BBC International, I see the news, I see policy, and when I read The Economist, I don't read anything else but The Economist, and I get so much of my data on honest reporting about race. In fact, there's a fabulous, I don't want to promote them, they are liberal, but they are good shoe leather journalists, The Economists are. A lot of my facts, as you see on the blog, come from The Economist.
Yeah, which is a great source. I mean, and that's the thing, Ilana, that's another thing. I mean, you know, facts, if we can get facts as the starting point.
There you go.
That's the fundamental thing.
That's the onus. That's the job of the media, to give people like you and I facts from which we can deduce analytical truth, the way we're doing now. But if you watch CNN, I just watch it. Also, Fox News often I just watch it to get argument points, because I don't get data. I get more data from from Fox News and certainly from Tucker Carlson. But if I want raw data that I can do these sort of columns, I go to The Economist, because they give me, there's an exceptional survey about white America. And The Economist says, this is not racism. This is where white America is in race. This is the racial consciousness that is, they don't call them, oh, they're afraid of the demographic change. Nothing of that in The Economist. Yeah. And I commend them for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned, though, Ilana, the way that the MAGA people in the US have been totally demonized by the media. In fact, I remember seeing a really good meme. Sometimes memes, I do like memes. Memes are great. And I saw it was a picture of Trump, but he was saying, you know, something along the lines of, it's not really me they're coming after, it's you. You being the 80 million. Yeah, and I thought, that's true. And just as, you know, all the MAGA people have been demonized. Back in 2016, all of us Brexiteers, all of the people here in the UK that argued to get to leave the EU, we were absolutely demonized as stupid, thick. You know, all the epithets.
Racist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and this comes back to the same thing. The people that were calling us that were a lot of these people with their university degrees and their doctorates and their well-placed public service jobs. Those were the people who were demonizing us back in 2016. but and I think similarly, the MAGA supporters are, again, I mean, they're called terrorists in the UK, which is amazing. I mean, that's actually a different level.
That is dangerous, and I think a journalist who covers it exceptionally well is Glenn Greenwald, because that is an interface between the law. When you start demonizing, and that's a topic for another conversation, when you start demonizing people because of the way they vote and think. And this is why we see the ratio of incarceration. We are verging on a police station. Without due process, I think there are hundreds. I'm not sure. I'll need to look at my facts. American Greatness covers this. Julie Kelly covers this exceptionally well. There are hundreds in jail without due process for the demonstration of January 6th. Yeah. But with the ratio of arrests of Black Lives Matter for looting, for maiming, for killing during the summer of 2020, during the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd riots, the ratio of arrests is ridiculous. I think most of them were just let out and not prosecuted. So when you say MAGA, and I actually did do a column about that they're after MAGA voters and people and the people the heartland that thinks the way we do. I consider myself, I guess, a public intellectual, but my heart's in the right place, right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think being intellectually minded and being a populist who believes in natural rights and the rights of people to determine how they live, how their localities look, who they accept, who they reject, freedom of private property. I don't think that is in contradiction to being an intellectual. And that's why I think when you talk about educated people, they are not educated. I've sat with liberals. I was wonderfully blessed to come to the UK to debate on a panel, Liberty Minded, and I sat with old Eton and Oxford gentlemen, and the English, the way they were able to think on their feet. It was Plato, Aristotle. It was just brilliant. I'm still very much wedded to my text. Not an orator, but these people, the best compliment I got was from philosopher David Conway. He's a British brilliant man. I said, how did I do, David? He said, you acquitted yourself very well. But these were educated people, and whether they were liberal or conservative now, I mean, I don't know if it's the same with your Ivy League, but the Ivy League is rubbish. I mean, it admits the worst, it enforces the worst, it propagates, it sends into society the worst of society. That's why we're dealing with a theory elevated in the Ivy League, which is based on a priori gibberish, circular arguments, and it's utter crap. If white, therefore black. That is the essence, therefore bad. That is the essence of critical race theory, and this is a product of our Ivy League thinking. So educated officially, but not truly educated.
But Ilana, there's another conversation to be had. How did Ivy League how did it get into this decayed state? I mean, and we're the same. We are exactly the same now in the UK. So it's across both sides of the Atlantic. We saw. I mean, in fact, if you recall, you rightly pointed out last week when we chatted again, going back to Sasha Johnson, she'd got a first or whatever from Oxford in social care.
I don't know if it was from a college. I don't know if it was Oxford. But it was you actually must have been quite well inculcated in these new fields of study created for comfort. She had a first from her college in social caring.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And she's not the only one like that, So, hey, listen, Ilana, we're going to shift. There's one thing I want to talk about just before we go. But before we shift away from critical race, is there anything you want to kind of summarize up before we move on?
Oh, now you put me in a bad place because we've covered everything. Well,
right. Well, then let's move on.
Whenever you see there's a whiteout on saying white among conservatives, and whenever, but yet at the same time, there's an absolute blitzkrieg in against white kids, white teachers who stand up. Actually, white liberals are promoting this stuff. And so if anything, if you want to winterize your kids against anti-white hatred, you have to be very, very brutal about this and speak plainly as we have on this show.
And that's why we'll continue to do that. Well, talking of speaking plainly, let's finish by talking about someone who speaks gibberish. That's whenever he does speak at all. And that, of course, if we can I want to talk about Joe Biden. We haven't really talked much about him at all since you've been coming on. But I just wanted to finish in this one because, he provides me with great material. It has to be said, Ilana. He is a target-rich environment for comedy potential, which would be good if he was a comedian and not the president of the United States. But I did want to just get your take on, Jay, can we just bring up this headline? If we can just bring it up, Q headline. Yeah. But okay, Ilana, he's going to spend, what is it, 6 trillion? He's 6 trillion, and it's apparently the GOP's torn into it, according to them anyway, although they like to spend money too, don't they? He's spending 36 billion in climate investments. Oh, that sounds exciting. Climate investments, 2 billion in gun violence, and 831 to the root causes of migration. Ilana, what madness is this?
He doesn't amuse me, and I don't really pay attention to the GOP Republican tit for tat with the Democrats. I think that's one of those meta debates that just draws us in and makes us captive audiences. I saw that Laura Ingraham was having a whole town hall about our policies are great. Well, we gave them the presidency, gubernatorial scene. They dominated the Republicans, the GOP, both chambers. And you were banned off Twitter, and I'm throttled and banned on Facebook. They did nothing that I can see any change in my life as a writer who needs speech to survive. So I am never drawn into this GOP Democrat. The Democrats are the real racists. The Democrats are the spenders. I think any Republican who dare open his mouth and speak about small government needs to be flogged publicly, like the great Singapore leader once used to do to naughty Americans who vandalized over there. What was his name? That wonderful man who flogged a young kid who vandalized. Never mind. They need to be flogged because the GOP has been a reliable engine for government growth and has presided over some of the greatest spending. And while it is true that I think Trump in his last year was printing at a rate of 20%, which is what Biden is printing at a rate to
Yeah.
debase the currency and to fund this, and we are in for, you know, we are in for something very, very horrible in terms of the debasement of the currency, and we see it with inflation. But so he's promised to continue, you know, everything. Your currency is debased by 20% every, and this is not inflation. I mean, the main indices they don't even consider in how they gauge inflation. So the GOP was pretty much doing that in the last year of Trump. And so I think the whole argument, this is actually how it ties in with Marxism too. How dare we talk about Marxism? We are a socialized economy, a heavily socialized economy, and how that's done with. Enough. Let's talk about surviving deadly anti-whiteness. I mean, the argument for small government when you're the liabilities that are on the books are 29 trillion. What about the unfunded liabilities? You know, those are hundreds of trillion. No,
I was looking at U.S. debt during the George W. Bush years, and then into the Obama years, and quite honestly, it is a bit like, you know, the quote from the George Orwell book, Animal Farm. You know, the pigs looked at the humans looked at the pigs, and they couldn't really tell the difference. And when I look at how debt went up, there was no difference. There's no difference. And then, as you said, towards during the Trump years as well. Yeah, as you said, I mean, it's always the same. It's the uni party. It spends money, but it does destroy the currency.
As one libertarian said, I think it was Butler Schaefer who recently died. I think it was two wings of the same bird of prey. And my apologies to the bird of prey community, because they're too beautiful and wonderful to even compare to the GOP, the stupid party, and the evil party and the stupid party. So I think the issue of big government, and you're going to see that in the ramp up to the midterm. It is, if we MAGA people get caught up in the big, we're the party of small government. No, you're not. We don't have small government. And actually, one of the statistics that I got from The Economist that was fascinating was that America has the largest government in the world, at 4,000 just in the government, not the bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, but the difference between, I think, the US and the UK is you do have like the 80 million MAGA people.
Yes.
Here in the UK, we've become so seduced by big government, and the government will take care of everything. That we don't have that same resistance to it, which I have, but I'm totally unrepresentative, you know. So that's why I put so much hope in the MAGA people, because although I'm a Brit, I see MAGA people as my soulmates.
Yes, and exactly, and this is why we have to focus on what is an assault against their race and against their beliefs and against their legal status in the country as sovereign citizens owed due process of law. So this is what is under assault, and actually you bring it to a nice, a conclusion. That's exactly it. You look to America because of the MAGA people and the strength of the people from the heartland, and these people are precisely the people that are being cancelled because of their race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's why we actually have to all support each other and stand by each other. And it's really important to get these kind of views, Ilana, out there into the broad sort of cybersphere, so that hopefully people listen and they absorb and they think about it, and it arms them to be able to think more critically, perhaps. But listen, we've come to the end of our time, again, all too quickly tonight. But Ilana, thank you very much for spending this time with us. It's always a pleasure to see you in the stream.
I enjoy it as much as you do. Thanks, David.
No, thank you, Ilana. Thanks to everybody for listening. Do make sure you check out all the links to Ilana's work, which are down below. And I do promise you, we will get a special done on Into the Cannibals Pot. We've talked about it loads. We should do a special program on it because it's a lot of stuff to talk about, but it's well worth it, folks. So look, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening to us. And I'll catch up with you folks real soon. That's it from us for tonight. Good night.